Mornings in Cedar Grove are quiet, especially on Maple Lane where the houses sit low and close together, like neighbours who've been whispering to each other for decades. I've lived here for over 50 years, in the same pale green house with the squeaky step that Frank always said he'd fix. He never did, and now I find comfort in the sound. At 78, I've learned to appreciate the slow rhythm of the day, the way sunlight filters through the lace curtains in my living room, the sound of birds tapping on the porch rail like they're checking in on me. My body doesn't move the way it used to. My knees crack when I stand, and my back stiffens if I sit too long, but I manage. The house is worn like me, but it holds every memory of the life Frank and I built together. He passed 8 years ago on a rainy Tuesday that started like any other. He was in the kitchen making toast, and then he just wasn't. His heart gave out fast and final. I still talk to him most mornings while I water the plants. I know it's silly, but it's something that brings me comfort, and at my age you don't question the things that keep you going. We raised 2 kids in this house, Mark and Claire. Their height marks are still faint on the doorframe in the hallway. I can still hear their little feet stomping down the hallway, arguing over who got to sit in the front seat. Christmases, birthdays, scraped knees, and piano recitals all happened inside these walls. But things changed. They got busy. Mark now runs a small business 2 towns over. Claire owns a flower shop and is always rushing somewhere. Claire visits maybe once a month. She's in and out in 20 minutes, usually, with a list of errands. Mark comes more often, but there's always a reason, a paper he needs me to sign a check he forgot to deposit. He always says he'll pay me back. He never does. I don't mind, not really. I just wish they came when they didn't need something, when they just wanted to sit with me like they used to. The only one who visits without a reason is Liam, my grandson. He's in college now, tall, kind-eyed, and always a little dishevelled. He comes by on Wednesdays when his class schedule is light. He brings stories about campus life, strange professors, and his growing obsession with old jazz records. He likes my blueberry pie, so I bake one every Wednesday morning. Not for me, I can't eat much sugar anymore, but for him. There's something about watching him eat 2 slices back to back that makes me feel remembered. He makes this old house feel alive again, even if just for an hour. He doesn't ask for anything. He just wants to be here. Wants to hear about Frank and the garden and the time the raccoon got into the attic. Sometimes I wonder when exactly the shift happened, when I stopped being the centre of their world and started becoming someone they had to manage. I don't think it was all at once. It's a slow fading, like the colour of the shutters outside that used to be bright blue, but now look more like dust. I try not to dwell on it, but some mornings when the house is especially quiet, I do. And yet, despite everything, I still love this house, this porch, this little life I've got. There's peace in routine, in knowing where every creak in the floor is, and how the kettle whistles when it's ready. Some people chase excitement. Me, I chase small comforts, tea in the morning, the sun on my window seat, Liam's laugh echoing down the hallway. And until recently, I thought that was enough. It was Wednesday again, which meant pie day. I'd been up since 6, peeling the last of the frozen blueberries I'd stashed away in summer. The dough didn't roll out quite as easily as it used to. My wrists ache more these days. But I got it done. I always do. The oven made the kitchen warm, the kind of warmth that makes you forget about stiff joints and creaky stairs. I didn't have much appetite for sweets anymore, but I still loved the smell of a pie in the oven. And besides, it wasn't for me. It was for Liam. I heard the front gate creak, then the familiar shuffle of sneakers on the porch steps. He always walks with this kind of lopsided bounce, like his feet haven't quite figured out how tall he's grown. Before he even knocked, I was already at the door, smiling, like I hadn't seen him in months, instead of just a week. "Hi, Grandma," he said, stepping inside the smell of pie already filling the hallway. "It's still warm," I said, setting a plate on the table. "Made it just for you." He grinned like I'd handed him a winning lottery ticket. "You really didn't have to." "I wanted to," I said, pouring tea into the chipped mug he always used. "So, how's school?" He dove into his slice, barely pausing to chew. As always, he started with a funny story about a professor who still couldn't get his name right after half a semester. Then he told me about a group project that went off the rails and how he ended up doing most of it himself. Somewhere between bites, he mentioned a girl named Brooke. She liked old poetry and apparently wore overalls to class. He looked a little embarrassed bringing her up, which told me everything I needed to know. He was halfway through his second slice when he looked up and said, "So have you figured out what you're going to wear on Friday?" I paused my hand hovering over the teapot. "Friday." He gave me a puzzled look. "You know Mum and Dad's anniversary dinner. 35 years, they booked a private room at Riverbend. Dad said he was going to pick you up." I stared at him, blinking slowly. "Your dad didn't say anything to me." Liam's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. "Really, I just assumed... he told me you were coming." I tried to smile, but something inside me had shifted like a picture frame on the wall that suddenly looks crooked. No one mentioned anything I said gently. He looked down at his plate. "Huh. Maybe he forgot to tell you? You know how Dad is always last minute." "Maybe," I said, but I knew it wasn't like Mark to forget something like that. Not something this big. He could be careless, sure, but this felt different. Off. Liam didn't push. He finished his tea, then helped me rinse the dishes like he always did. He gave me a hug at the door, longer than usual, and told me Brooke wanted to meet me sometime. I told him I'd bake an extra pie, but the whole time my mind was elsewhere. After he left, I stood in the kitchen staring at the empty pie plate. The smell still lingered, warm and sweet, but it didn't feel comforting anymore. If there was a dinner planned, and I hadn't been told, what did that mean? That they forgot? That they didn't want me there? Or that I just didn't matter? I tried not to let my thoughts spiral. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe Mark got distracted, or Claire assumed someone else would tell me. Families mess things up sometimes. But even as I tried to convince myself, I felt something unsettled growing inside me, slow and heavy. I sat by the window with a second cup of tea that went cold in my hands, watching the wind shift the curtains. I didn't have answers yet, but I knew one thing for sure. Whatever this was, it wasn't just a simple mistake. That night, after Liam left, I couldn't get the conversation out of my head. The way he looked, surprised, genuinely surprised that I hadn't heard about the dinner, made it clear he hadn't been part of any plan to exclude me. He just assumed I'd be there because, well, why wouldn't I be? It was my son's anniversary, my family. But there I was, sitting in a quiet kitchen, staring at the phone, like it might give me an answer if I waited long enough. Around 8:30, my phone finally rang. Mark's name lit up the screen. I picked it up quickly, trying to sound cheerful. "Hey, sweetheart." His voice came through with just a little too much pep. "Hey, Mum. Just wanted to give you a heads up. We're cancelling the dinner on Friday. Carla's come down with something. Doctor says she needs a few days of bed rest." I blinked. "Oh no, that's too bad. Do you need anything I could make some soup drop off?" No, he cut in quickly. "We're covered. Just wanted to let you know." He hung up before I could ask anything else. No pause, no check-in, just a smooth exit. I sat there, the dial tone ringing in my ear, and suddenly the kitchen felt too still, too neat. If the dinner was cancelled, why had Liam thought I was going? Why hadn't Mark told me earlier in the week? Why did it feel like this wasn't the truth? Something about the way he rushed to end the call stuck with me. I didn't want to believe it, didn't want to go down that road, but my gut had already started to twist. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. Maybe he really was just being thoughtless. Maybe he didn't want me to worry about Carla. Still, I needed to hear from Claire. So the next morning, I called her while I was watering the ferns on the back porch. She answered. After a few rings, her voice distracted. "Hey, Mom, what's up? I just wanted to check on Carla. Mark said she's sick." There was a pause too long to be natural. "Sick?" she repeated, like the word had caught her off guard. "Yes, he said she needed bed rest, that the anniversary dinner was cancelled." "Oh, right. Yeah, I guess she's still not feeling well," Claire mumbled. I waited for her to say more. She didn't. "So you're not going either then?" Another pause. "Oh, yeah, of course. If it's cancelled?" It wasn't just awkward. It was off. Claire was many things, but a terrible liar wasn't one of them. Her voice gave her away shaky and unsure in a way I'd never heard before. She hung up not long after saying she had a delivery to make for the shop. I didn't press. I didn't need to. The rest of the day passed like I was moving underwater. I tried reading, folding laundry, even organising the spice rack, anything to get my mind to stop circling the same question. Why would they lie? The next morning, I went out to the local market. Not for groceries, I didn't need anything, but I just needed to get out of the house, breathe in different air. While picking up some apples I didn't plan to buy, I ran into Martha Jean, an old friend from church and retired school teacher. She still worked part-time at the same flower shop Claire ran. She smiled wide. "Big celebration tomorrow, huh?" I raised an eyebrow. "What celebration?" "Your son and daughter-in-law's anniversary. Claire told me she was taking the evening off. Said you all booked the fancy room at Riverbend." My mouth went dry. I managed a weak smile. "Oh, right. Of course." She didn't notice the shift in my voice. I thanked her, paid for the apples, and walked home slower than usual. Every step felt heavier. So it wasn't cancelled. They'd lied. Mark, Claire, both of them. They had gone out of their way to make sure I wasn't there. Pretended to care, even went so far as to create a fake illness. All so I'd stay home. Alone. Forgotten. Or worse, intentionally removed. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood in the front hallway, coat still on purse, dangling from my arm, and stared at the family photo that hung above the key hook, the one from Claire's wedding. We were all smiling then. I wondered how long ago that moment stopped being real. That night, I didn't sleep much. I sat in my old armchair with the Afghan draped over my legs, flipping through the photo album I hadn't touched in years. There was Mark, at age 5, missing his front tooth and holding up a lopsided drawing like it was a masterpiece. Claire, on her first bike, Frank, standing just behind her arms, outstretched, like he could catch the whole world if it tipped. I stared at those pictures and tried to figure out when things had changed, when I went from being at the center of their lives to someone they maneuvered around like a piece of old furniture. Maybe it had been gradual. Maybe I hadn't noticed because I didn't want to. But now I couldn't ignore it. By morning, I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to sit home and wonder why. I was going to find out for myself. So I stood in front of the closet and pulled out the navy blue dress I hadn't worn since Frank's funeral. Simple, long sleeves, nothing flashy. It still fit, though I'd lost some weight. I laid it across the bed and stared at it for a while, remembering how tightly I'd clutched Frank's hand that day in the chapel. That dress had held grief once. Maybe now it could hold strength. I spent most of the day preparing, not fussing, just moving through the steps. I polished my shoes, pressed the dress, brushed my hair back into the low bun I always wore for special occasions, put on a touch of lipstick, even though it felt strange after so many bare-faced years. I looked at myself in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman at first. Then I did. It was the version of me I used to be quiet, but not invisible. At 5 p.m., sharp, I called a cab. When the driver pulled up, he looked like he could have been Liam's age earbuds in arms covered in tattoos, barely glanced at me until I said the destination. "Riverbend Restaurant, please," I said steady as I could. He raised an eyebrow. "Swanky place, special occasion." I replied, not offering more. We drove in silence. Cedar Grove passed by in soft shades of grey, the sky heavy with clouds that threatened rain, but didn't quite deliver. I asked the driver to stop just short of the main entrance. "Wait here for me," I told him, just in case. I didn't go in through the front. I walked around the side down a path that led past the guest parking lot. It didn't take long to spot them. Mark's silver SUV, Claire's beige sedan, Liam's dusty old Honda with the bumper sticker peeling off the back. Every car was here. No doubt, no confusion. They were inside. I kept walking until I reached a row of large windows near the banquet room. Most were covered with curtains, but there was a gap just enough to see through. And there they were. All of them. A round table in the centre, candles lit, glasses raised. Cora Carla was in a red dress, smiling like she hadn't spent a second in bed. Mark was standing, giving some sort of toast. Claire was laughing, seated beside a man I didn't recognise. Liam and a girl, Brooke, maybe, were talking softly. A few other faces I couldn't place, probably friends or co-workers. But not me. I wasn't there. Not even an empty seat. A knot rose in my chest, but I didn't let it turn into tears. Instead, I straightened my spine, fixed the buttons on my coat, and walked around to the front entrance. A young man stood at the door in a navy vest with a gold name tag. "Good evening, ma'am. Do you have a reservation?" "No," I said calmly. "But I believe the Hayes family is celebrating tonight. I'm Eleanor Hayes, Mark's mother." His expression shifted. He blinked, then nodded slowly. "Yes, of course. Please come in." I stepped into the warm glow of the lobby, the smell of rosemary and roast lamb filling the air. Just as I was gathering myself, a voice called out from behind. "Eleanor," I turned and saw him, Lewis Hartman, the owner of Riverbend, once the shy boy who lived across the street, always borrowing books from our porch and asking for seconds on pie. He looked older now, silver in his beard, but there was kindness in his eyes. "You haven't changed a bit," he said with a smile. "Oh, I have," I replied. "And apparently, so has my family." He studied my face, his own smile fading. "Did they not invite you? They lied to keep me away." There was a long pause. Then he offered his arm. "Well," he said, his voice firm, "let's not keep them waiting." And just like that, I slipped my hand into the crook of his elbow, lifted my chin, and walked forward. When Lewis opened the doors to the banquet room, it was like the whole world hit pause. The soft hum of conversation, the clinking of glasses, the quiet music playing in the background, all of it seemed to freeze. People turned their heads slowly, confusion written across their faces. At the center of the room, Mark was mid-toast, still holding his champagne flute. He choked a little when he saw me, his mouth staying open like the words got stuck. Carla's smile slipped. Claire's wineglass trembled slightly in her hand. Liam looked shocked, like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. I didn't rush. Lewis and I walked in slowly, calmly, like we belonged there, which we did. I kept my eyes on Mark and Claire. I wanted to see it. I wanted to see what it looked like when guilt met realization. Liam was the first to move. He stood up startled, his napkin falling to the floor. "Grandma." I gave him a small smile and a nod. Then I turned back to the rest of the table. Mark stood too, his face pale, his movements clumsy as he pushed his chair back. "Mom, you're here," he said, voice cracking. "We thought you weren't feeling well." "No," I said, my voice even. "You told me the dinner was cancelled. You said Carla was sick." "But here she is." I looked at her. Looking quite radiant, actually. Carla blinked fast. I felt better this morning." "Well, how miraculous," I replied, letting my eyes drift around the table. So many healthy, happy faces. A beautiful room. A celebration for a cancelled dinner. Silence settled back in. You could have heard a fork drop. Probably did. Lewis, always the gentleman, pulled out a chair between Liam and a young woman I assumed was Brooke. I nodded my thanks and sat down, folding my hands neatly in my lap. "I didn't come to ruin your evening," I said softly. "I came to see it for myself, to make sure I hadn't just been forgotten. That this wasn't some sort of mix-up, but it wasn't, was it?" "You planned this." Claire opened her mouth, but I lifted a hand. "I'm speaking now." I reached into my purse and pulled out a white envelope, laying it gently on the table. "I brought a few things with me, just in case." Mark's eyes flicked to it, his expression tightening. "This," I said, sliding the first sheet out, "is confirmation that I sold the house 3 days ago. The one you were both so eager for me to sign over. It's gone now. A young couple with 2 little ones will be moving in next month." Claire gasped. Mark looked like he'd been slapped. "And this," I continued, pulling out a second paper, "is a donation receipt. The proceeds from the sale, just under $500,000, were given to the Cedar Grove Public Library. They're naming the new children's wing after your father, Frank Hayes. He loved that library more than anything. Someone dropped a fork. I didn't look to see who." "Grandma." Liam started, eyes wide. "I'm not done," I said gently, then placed the final document on the table. "This is my revised will. Whatever little I have left my savings, my things goes to Liam. The only one at this table who visited me because he wanted to, not because he needed something." Mark's face flushed deep red. Carla stared down at her plate. Claire looked like she might cry. I looked at each of them, not with anger, not with hate, just clarity. You wanted a party without me? I said. Now you have one. But you also have the truth. Nobody said a word. Mark looked like he wanted to speak, but nothing came out. Claire stared into her wine like it might offer an escape. Carla avoided my eyes altogether. Only Liam met my gaze. Grandma? He said quietly. I didn't know, I swear. I thought you'd been invited. I know, sweetheart, I replied, placing a hand gently over his. This isn't about you. Mark cleared his throat. Mom, we should talk. Maybe we could step outside. No, I said. You've done enough talking. I heard the lies. I saw the truth. I don't need more words. I need respect. Claire's voice was shaky. We didn't mean to hurt you. But you did, I said. And I let it happen for too long. I stood smoothing the front of my dress. It didn't feel like a funeral dress anymore. It felt like armor. You taught me something, I said. All of you. That love, real love, can fade when it's not convenient. And I've learned something too. That love without dignity isn't love at all. It's dependence. And I'm done depending. Liam started to rise like he might walk me out, but I shook my head. Stay. Enjoy the evening. You deserve to be here. I turned to Lewis, who had waited quietly nearby, hands folded. Would you mind calling that cab again? Already, did he said with a soft smile. It's waiting outside. And with that I walked out. The silence behind me said more than their words ever could. 3 months have passed since that night at Riverbend, and life feels different, smaller, maybe, but lighter. After I sold the house, I found a 1-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor of a quiet brick building near the town square. It's nothing fancy, but it's warm and filled with light in the mornings. I brought only what I needed: some dishes, a few books, the old armchair Frank loved, and the photo albums I couldn't let go of. The rest went to donation, or stayed with the new family who bought the house. I heard their kids laughing in the backyard once, while I was finishing the paperwork. It felt right. Every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday morning, I walk over to the Cedar Grove Public Library. I volunteer mostly in the children's wing, the one that now bears Frank's name on a small bronze plaque near the entrance. I help toddlers pick out picture books, read aloud to small groups on carpet squares, and listen when older kids need someone to talk to about whatever it is they're going through. No one there cares what I own or where I used to live. They just see me as I am, which is something I hadn't felt in a long time. Mark calls now. At first it was every day, then every couple of days. The conversations are different now, gentler, slower. I think he's trying to find his way back, though I don't make it easy. I answer, but I don't offer more than I feel like sharing. I told him once that trust isn't something I hand out anymore. It has to be earned. He said he understood. I hope he meant it. Claire came by once. She brought flowers from her shop lilies and little white daisies. She stayed for tea. Didn't say much, just looked around the apartment like she was trying to understand how I had built something without them. I think that's what shook her the most, that I hadn't crumbled, that I didn't need them to move forward. I don't shut them out. But I don't let them all the way in either. Not yet. The money's gone now. Between the donation and getting settled into the new place, there's nothing left to chase. And maybe that's why it's quiet now. Because when there's nothing left to gain, all that's left is who you really are. If they want me now, it has to be for me, not for what I can give or sign or fix. Lewis has become something of a friend. He stops by the library some afternoons with a cup of chai, And stories from the restaurant who sent their steak back, which couple got engaged. We've gone to the community theatre twice once to see a musical I barely followed, but still enjoyed. He invited me to dinner with his sister last week. It's not romantic, not in the way people assume. It's companionship. It's easy. He asks for nothing except conversation. And for the first time in years, I've allowed someone new into my world. Some evenings, I sit by the window with a cup of tea, the breeze carrying the smell of blooming jasmine up from the garden below. I close my eyes and breathe in. I used to think the end of a chapter had to be painful, something marked by loss or grief. But this feels different. It's not bitter. It's calm. Like I finally stepped out of a room where I wasn't wanted and found a quieter one where I belong. I don't know what comes next, but I know this: I'm not waiting anymore. Not for calls or invitations or apologies. This life is mine now, and I intend to live it not around others, not for them, but finally fully for myself. Today is a special day. The library is holding a ribbon-cutting ceremony for the new children's wing, Frank's wing. They asked me to say a few words, which I tried to downplay, but Liam wouldn't let me get away with it. He showed up right on time, wearing a tie that didn't quite sit straight, and holding a bouquet of lilies he said he picked up on the way because they looked like something Grandpa would have liked. I had to smile at that. "You ready for your big moment, Grandma?" He grinned, standing tall in the doorway. I smoothed the front of my navy blue dress, the same one I wore the night of the dinner. Funny how a dress can carry so many versions of you. That night it held disappointment and quiet resolve. Today it holds something else entirely, peace, I think. Or maybe pride. "It's not a big moment," I told him, grabbing my purse. "Just a ribbon and a plaque." "No," he said more seriously this time. "It's more than that. It's a legacy." The walk to the library wasn't long, just a few blocks, but I was surprised by how many people had already gathered. There were kids running through the grass, folding chairs being arranged by volunteers, and a little table set up with lemonade and cookies. I saw the mayor shaking hands, a group of local teachers chatting near the entrance, and a couple of parents whose children I recognized from story time. It felt like a real event, something meaningful. And there, right near the door to the new wing, stood a stand draped with a silky cloth. Underneath it was the plaque with Frank's name. Miss Patterson, the head librarian, waved us over with her usual energy. "Eleanor, everyone's been waiting for you." The ceremony started soon after. The mayor spoke first. He said something nice about community values and preserving history. Then Miss Patterson talked about books and dreams and the power of imagination. Finally, she looked at me. And now Eleanor Hayes, who made all of this possible. I walked slowly to the small podium, feeling every eye on me, but not in a nervous way. More like acknowledgement. I took a breath and looked out over the crowd. "Thank you all," I began. "This wing is named after my husband, Frank Hayes. He believed in the magic of stories and the importance of giving kids a place to dream. He read to our children every night, even when he was tired, even when they begged for the same book 3 times in a row. He believed a well-loved book could change a child's life. I believe it too." I scanned the audience and spotted Mark and Claire near the back. Mark's eyes were down. Claire looked up and gave me a small nod. I returned it, nothing more. "My hope," I continued, "is that this space becomes a sanctuary, a place where kids can come to learn to wonder and to grow. Because in the end, life isn't measured by what you own, it's measured by what you give. There was soft applause, and Liam helped me down from the podium. Together, we walked to the plaque, and I let him help me cut the ribbon. A camera clicked. The silky cloth came off. And there it was, Frank's name shining in the afternoon sun. The crowd began to disperse, but Lewis appeared beside me with 2 paper cups of lemonade and that same calm look he always had. To beginnings, he said, holding out a cup. To choose in yourself, I replied, and we clinked the cups gently. I stood there a while longer, watching the children spill into the new wing, already laughing and picking out books. And I thought about how far I'd come, not in miles, but in meaning. I don't know if Mark or Claire will ever fully understand what they did, or how it changed things. Maybe someday, maybe not. But I'm not waiting on that anymore. Because this life, this one right here with its quiet mornings, new friendships, and rooms full of stories, it's mine. And for the first time in a long time, I'm living every last page of it on my own terms. This story reminds us that sometimes the deepest heartbreaks don't come from strangers, but from the people closest to us, the ones we once held with unconditional love. As we age, it's easy to feel like we're becoming invisible, our roles shrinking to the sidelines of family events and conversations. But Eleanor's journey teaches us a powerful truth. Dignity doesn't fade with time, it strengthens when we choose ourselves. In standing up for her worth, she didn't just reclaim her voice, she redefined what it means to live fully with grace, clarity, and purpose. The library wing named after Frank wasn't just a tribute to her husband. It was a quiet declaration that love remembered and passed on can outshine any moment of being forgotten. And in choosing connection over resentment, solitude over dependence, Eleanor didn't just find freedom, she found peace. This story gently encourages all of us, especially in our later years, to remember that it's never too late to let go of what hurts and to step boldly into a chapter that we write for ourselves. If this story touched you in any way, we'd love to hear from you. Share in the comments what themes resonated most or what kind of stories you'd like to hear next. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes that continue exploring the strength, resilience, and beauty found in everyday lives. Thank you for spending this time with us. May you walk into the next chapter of your life with courage, warmth, and the quiet confidence of someone who knows they matter.